Power often follows timetables more than thrones. Clocks, grain, and gates decide which teachings find audiences. Ships cant to the monsoon. Harbors thicken with waiting hulls. This is the Holy Belt, from Levant, Mesopotamia, to the Indo-Gangetic plain, roughly 800 to 200 BCE. Caravans roll on seasonal timetables. Ports post calendars beside grain tallies and hire extra stevedores. First the clock, then the grain, then the gate. That's how ideas move. Way stations buzz with disputations over diet, duty, and salvation. Because winds and roads discipline movement, ideas ride with goods and arrive in rhythm. Merchants chase seasons. Scholars and monastic networks chase audiences. Administrators and coinage make exchange legible from port to court. When the winds turn, ports fill, prices swing, and pilgrims, traders, and students move together along the same corridors. We'll map how routes, surpluses, and debate stack the deck without declaring beginnings. What follows traces a corridor where disciplined movement turns lessons into routines. Stay to the end for a revealing map overlay that turns the Holy Belt into a lens, not a verdict. If this kind of slow, map-based history is your pace, take a moment to subscribe. It helps keep these routes unfolding and new corridors on the map.
From the Levant, Mesopotamia, to the Indo-Gangetic plain, roughly 800 to 200 BCE, the corridor tightens into piers, caravan yards, and pass towns. Merchants pursue profit. Monastic networks pursue patrons. A lingua franca at docks and way stations makes strangers legible, that is, a shared trade tongue. Lay the trade routes over origin dots and a pattern jumps. Harbors, toll houses, and oasis inns glow in the same places. At a quay, ropes creak, a chalkboard lists departures, and a broker repeats the price in the common tongue, writes a receipt, and a toll clerk stamps it. One clean mechanism turning meetings into movement. Posted, stamped, it moves. Guild marks, shrines, and customs posts recur on different maps, giving certain crossroads stubborn gravity. Dots are not decrees, they are memory of roots. Roughly 3/4 of humanity now follows traditions that trace along this strip, and the overlay of trade lanes and origin dots shows why the clusters endure. Porters feel it in their backs before scholars write it down. A 2-month sailing window opens, berths vanish by midday, ferry queues braid the pier, and lodging prices jump a coin. In courtyards fill with a 40-camel string, and students barter for mats near the shrine gate. Scribes copy portable cannons in travel-ready formats. Innkeepers memorize festival calendars that swell their rooms. Not borders, corridors. So what? Timed crowds create repeat audiences, perfect conditions for short, copyable doctrines. Since traffic concentrates where routes intersect, teachings scale fastest at the service nodes that feed and shelter travelers. The mechanism is simple. Crowds gather on a timetable, a common tongue shortens the bargaining, and a stamped slip carries goods and news through each gate. Shopkeepers mark price swings by the wind, drovers plan returns by the moon, copyists earn by the page when the road is full. Parallel blooms occur elsewhere. Here, density matters. More stages, more audiences, more patrons, more copyists. To explain why the pins cluster where they do, follow the stores that finance them, the river barns, the ledgers on reed and palm, and the surpluses that hired specialists.
Rainless heat shimmers above reed-lined canals at dusk. From the upper Euphrates and Tigris to the Levantine coast, early towns grow into axial age cities, urban centers of the mid-1st millennium BCE, when large moral systems crystallized across several regions. Imperial clerks count grain for troops in temples. Scribes fix law and lore to keep memory straight. River surplus funds specialists. Floods feed cities. But storage and recall are hard, so clay tablets, sealed jars, and witnessed receipts turn perishable harvests into portable promises. In a courtyard granary, a steward measures barley by the seah, smooths a wet tablet, rolls a cylinder seal, and sets it to dry beside a peg that matches the bin. Storage with records turns perishable harvests into portable trust. The wall is sun-dried brick, 5 cubits high. 2 witnesses press their thumbnails into the edge. The lid is luted with clay. That stamp and those prints are the key that makes the grain speak when the voices are gone. Because grain arrives in pulses, officials stagger deliveries on a 30-day quota, post tallies, and levy a 1 shekel late fee per cart. The bins stay level, and spoilage stays low. At the bake oven and the pay table, the stakes are plain. Rations appear when fields are bare. Wages settle on court days, and loaves hold a steady price through winter because tallies match storage. Contracts set shares at the irrigation gate. Boundary stones are learned by heart. Courts recognize standard weights by stamped symbols. A caravaner can pledge next harvest to hire guards today, carrying a tablet rather than a sack. Priests track offerings by week. Palace kitchens schedule pots for tomorrow. Boatmen take credit against the first upstream barge. Writing binds barns to markets and markets to law, turning grain into time you can see. By the way, while we're on the subject of ledgers and stored memory, we made something for the quiet thinkers in this community. The Ancient Secrets mug, inspired by the same habit of keeping stories warm across time. You can find it in our store, linked in the pinned comment. Tablets outlast a season, so memory travels farther than carts, and rules ride with rations. As surplus thickens, desks multiply, and with them, the capacity to copy edicts, hymns, and stories on the same administrative spine that moves food. Another basin learned the same trick at bigger scale.
From Punjab to Bengal in the late Vedic and early Mauryan years, the plain runs green and busy along its rivers. Scholars look for patrons, merchants look for safe markets, populations gather at ferries, bridges, and caravan crossings, where toll bells and market clocks set the day. At dawn, a hermit chants by a sal tree, then takes a ferry. By dusk, he speaks from a bamboo platform near the tax office, while bullock carts rattle past. Harvests grow huge, but attention is scarce, so renouncers compress teaching into portable shapes that stand out in noise. 4 truths, 8 steps, 10 vows, lists that travel. Lists are easy to carry in memory and easy to test, so they outrun longer stories. Monasteries rise near grain yards and landing stairs. Alms rounds match the hour when buyers crowd the stalls. As bridges and ghats pack tight, teachers compete for ears and agree on rules of debate that keep an audience from drifting. A palm leaf sheet folds into a strip, the headings thick in ink. A student repeats them back in order and earns the right to copy. Stakes show at the stall. A weaver closes early to hear a sermon, loses a half-day's sales, and weighs the cost against vows that promise steadier work and calmer sleep. Fairs run for 3 market days. Students cross 2 ferries to hear rival schools within a week's walk. Caravan leaders want predictable ethics on the road. Patrons fund teachers who standardize precepts and lodging. Ledger keepers mark donations in measures of rice, copper coins, and roof beams for dormitories. Forest hermitage one day, town sermon the next. The Megabasin lets ideas shuttle between retreat and bazaar without losing thread. With crowds thick and clocks regular, the plain multiplies audiences and speeds the spread of memory aids. Not every doctrine sticks, yet this stage-rich basin rewards clarity and rules that travel well. A chalked slate posts court times and testing fees, leaving a margin for doctrine. A herald hammers a notice board beside the courthouse at midday. From the eastern Mediterranean to North India, roughly 800 to 200 BCE, boards like this multiply, while China, outside the belt, assembles its own classics under different winds and calendars. Debaters test ethics. Imperial administrators chase order. Law, taxes, and courts set the limits of what will live in public. Here is the visible mechanism. A governor's office receives a revised statute. A scribe copies 2 clean versions. The herald reads the clauses aloud. A market inspector checks scales, seals merchants' weights, and lists the fee for testing them. Words become routines that a clerk can file and a household can follow. Because statutes and proclamations draw boundaries for conduct, teachers reshape lessons into lists, oaths, and procedures that travel through the same offices. Teachings ride the same routes as fees and forms. Everyday life registers the shift. Clerks update fee tables every 30 days. Bakers weigh loaves against posted standards. Litigants queue beneath an awning while a teacher schedules a sermon for the hour after the docket clears. Petitioners learn forms. Preachers learn to cite. Copyists carve summaries in stone or copper, so the same words reach distant market towns. Lists proliferate. Vows, offenses, exemptions, because lists move through bureaucracy better than parables alone. Scholars still debate the timing and causes of this moral flowering. Some note uneven tempos, others point to the sheer volume of new public language. Either way, density matters. More notice boards, more auditors, more audience. And beyond the belt, China's parallel codifications prove that concentration and codification do not need to share a corridor. Similar pressures can shape different routes. The lesson is simple and concrete. When weights, fees, and hearings are calendared, thought bends toward what can be posted, witnessed, and sealed. Law meets doctrine at the board and on the scale pan. To carry that blend between ports and monasteries, someone must ride the wind and the road. If this work lands for you, a super thanks helps the channel keep going at this thoughtful pace with careful researches and steady uploads. Harbor flags snap from the Arabian Sea to the Bay of Bengal. Late 1st millennium BCE onward, departures follow a wind clock more binding than ink. Merchants plan seasons. Monastic networks follow patrons. Monsoon shifts are the constraint. Southwest June to September, northeast November to February. Ships can leap coasts, but seasons trap them in harbors. So diasporas fund temples and steady doctrine while crews wait. At dusk, a pilot reads swell and stars. A broker tallies freight by lamp. A clerk chalks, "Depart after the third squall," and the quay settles into the long holdover. Voyages bunch into windows and then into months of enforced neighborhood. Because winds reverse predictably, strangers become regulars. The same crews berth beside the same warehouses on the same weeks each year, and habit builds a calendar no office posts. Stakes run through the bazaar. Dockhands earn steadily only when masts crowd the pier. Spice sellers hoard stock for the opening gust. Pilgrims bargain for deck space beside bales of grain. Wind calendars double as pilgrimage planners, pinning feast days to saleable weeks so patrons and teachers meet on schedule. In a 20-day crossing, a donor promises a roof beam. In a 2-month layover, that pledge turns into a shrine with lodging. Temples near warehouses post loan terms and meal hours. Verses keep tide time. A sailor returns after the northeast run and finds the same abbot, the same liturgy, the same debt book, with pages added and vows renewed. Lists of donation categories and precepts ride with the merchants, copied in scripts a port over still recognizes. Sea lanes stitch distant coasts into a seasonal congregation. Rules travel with cargo lists that outlast a single run, and speech patterns settle like silt in the same basins year after year. When masts thin and the last hulls warp upriver for shelter, the story shifts inland, where desert wells and toll gates write different schedules for movement and meeting.
Torchlight wobbles on a plastered wall while camels kneel to unload. From the Syrian steppe to the Hindu Kush, classical into late antique seasons, caravans move between fixed wells and narrow passes. Merchants need safety, administrators tax transit. Water and risk set the limits. Scarcity funnels traffic into the same courtyards, and crowds form on a timetable no clock keeps. At dawn, a patrol captain counts spearheads. A water steward reads the cistern stick. A gate clerk chalks the levy per bale. Because water is rationed at posted wells, caravans converge and wait. Holdovers knit strangers into audiences. A monk climbs a bluff above the spring and speaks in the tamarisk's shade. A monastery perches where camels must stop, with a courtyard well and a storeroom of barley cakes. Stakes show at the trough. Handlers trade an hour's pay for 2 skins. A smith hammers a broken buckle while drovers queue. A host sets floor mats by head count and sells an extra cup when word comes that a patrol has opened the next pass. Toll houses post rates by weight and species. A scribe stamps a receipt. At the next gate, that same slip clears the convoy through. One stamped promise turning a night's bargaining into forward motion. Waiting supplies the audience. Stamps supply the shortcut. Posting guards on the worst mile costs less than hunting bandits over 50, therefore forced clusters at passes and oases. Schedules settle around that choice. Recitations begin when shade reaches the second marker. Donation lists read like supply notes. 1 jar of oil, 3 ropes, 5 measures of millet. Travelers prefer rules they can carry. Short vows, settled tariffs, predictable lodgings. Shrines beside wells turn into waypoints. A letter in a saddlebag confirms credit 2 stops ahead. As these nodes add services, wayfarers return, and memory ties to places as tightly as to words. When the road is paved and coin is trusted, speed replaces waiting.
From Anatolia to the Indus, then Magadha across India, 6th to 3rd centuries BCE, the map gains stations and mile counts. Administrators standardize and scribes circulate edicts. Roads and coinage set common terms. Couriers change horses at relay posts a day apart. Toll houses weigh loads on the same stones, and coppersmiths strike punch-marked coins to agreed weights. Provinces differ, yet standards bite. A trader can leave one capital and by the same measure 2 provinces away. It's everyone finally agreeing on the same charger. Shared units shorten arguments and widen reach. At a 3-way junction, a pillar carries stone edicts in more than one script. At midday, a clerk reads them aloud, while caravans swap teams and waterskins. Because travel times shrink and prices speak a single language, teachings keep their wording across distance. Therefore, summaries survive the road instead of fraying into rumor. Action runs in small steps. An overseer inspects a bridge and logs the span. A road gang fills ruts before the rains. A postmaster seals a packet. A tax guard stamps a receipt. A treasurer buys grain with marked silver that a baker takes without testing. The chain holds because every step recognizes the same units. Stakes sit on the counter. Shopkeepers post one price for coin and another for barter, and prefer coin because it settles the tally at once. Porters ask for stamped pieces, countable by anyone in the line. Scribes lean on common units when copying creeds and fines, so ethics lists and feed tables share numbers and proofs. A traveler pockets a short doctrine on a clay tag and a purse that spends along the trunk road. At junction towns, the sameness of weights reduces quarrels. The sameness of milestones keeps itineraries honest. Stone speaks where officials cannot stay. Road crews and mint workers, by routine, clear a lane for ideas. In the next courtyards, language and images learn the same trick.
A die strikes silver. A thin ring hangs in the mint.
Between the Oases and the Indus, out toward Mesopotamia, 1st to 9th centuries CE, courts and caravan towns work as workshops for language and image. Patrons commission reach. Scholars translate for audiences. Constraint sits in the crowd. Many tongues divide listeners, so bureaus and benefactors build bridges. Translation centers and lingua francas unlock rooms that borders once kept small. A reader intones a verse. A glossator gives the sense in a trade tongue. A scribe inks the main line, leaves 2 fingers of margin, and fixes one term for the next copy. Across the lane, apprentices pounce a chalk cartoon onto wood. The master adjusts a hand sign so upland monks and lowland traders both recognize the vowel it signals. The same teaching acquires a surface that travels. Coin and caption learn the same trick. A shared face speaks to monks and traders. Emblem on one side, sacred sign on the other. Spending from river mart to desert hinge without reweighing. Because dinars hover near 4 grams, contracts ride on their reputation. Sermons and ledgers keep time to the same scales. The unit holds, the message holds. Everyday stakes are counted out loud. Translators are paid by the line, carvers by the letter. Dockside dealers prefer texts and tokens they can read and weigh without help. Market courts post rates for copying into scripts. Caravan leaders fund bilingual signboards so porters follow vowels and tariffs alike. Milestones switch alphabets across valleys, yet keep the distance counts. Temple boards list gifts in paired columns, so donors from opposite slopes recognize the categories by the 9th century. A scholar quotes a frontier canon in Arabic at a river port, and sailors from 2 seas followed the sense. Coins, captions, and creeds converge. Shared surfaces carry memory farther than any single city can. Over the passes, the same signs wear new robes at shrines along the road. I'd love to hear your take. Do you think empire made belief more universal or just more portable? Drop your thoughts below. The debates are half the fun.
Snowmelt rattles through a stony gorge before widening into the Peshawar Basin. Westward, the Iranian plateau lifts in pale steps across the 1st millennium CE. Monastic networks teach, scholars argue rival cosmologies. Terrain sets the limits. Saddles with water and patrols collect caravans whether they agree or not. Crowds gather where the path narrows and contact can bruise. So the images and summaries that travel best learn to meet halfway. In a cliffside chapel, a sculptor sketches a calm figure in a draped toga, then carves a panel that hints at a fire altar, a Buddha in a toga near a flame that nods toward Zoroastrian rites. Because passes funnel trade into the same courtyards, styles and teachings mix until both sides of the ridge can read them. A toll steward hangs 2 boards, one in a local script and one in a trade tongue. A monk copies a homily in both. A notary stamps a seal that downstream officials accept without debate. Travelers read familiar signs. Taxmen read multiple scripts. The road moves. Everyday stakes collect at dusk. A drover chooses the shrine whose icon he recognizes, sleeps easier, and pays the posted tariff without haggling. The clerk clears 3 caravans before moonrise because the forms match and the seal is known. Workshop habits follow the traffic. Carvers standardize curls, folds, and hand signs into a kit porters can spot at a glance. Painters add halo and hearth so upland villagers and plateau traders both feel addressed. Doctrines adjust in step. Lists foreground household vows beside monastic ones. Borrowed terms soften quarrels over soul, smoke, and salvation. Shrines near waterholes double as arbitration rooms. Receipts sit beneath votive lamps. Bilingual donation boards fix categories across valleys. Mixture here is not fog. It is signage, precise choices that keep peace and keep audiences.
Beyond these passes, other ecologies set different clocks and thought bends to different routes. China, Japan, Africa, and the Americas sit beyond this corridor on timelines that do not track the belt's 800 to 200 BCE rhythm. Scholars systematize order. Local priests anchor rites. Different ecologies pose other problems. Monsoon rice here, dry savanna there, mountains and rain shadows elsewhere. Routes and surplus still matter, but terrain and seasons set the first constraints. So Confucian, Taoist, Shinto, and indigenous frames follow other logics. In a Chinese county seat, a magistrate posts exam themes beside tax dues. Lineage halls fund schools because office rests on study more than on pilgrimage. In a Japanese port, shrines tie rites to fisheries. A village priest blesses nets before merchants tally catches. Across African savannas, caravan towns face long dry legs. Wells and herds shape festivals, while praise singers keep contracts in memory as much as on paper. In the Andes, terraces pin fields to slopes. Storehouses and relay runners bind valleys where wheels make little sense. Because landscapes dictate what moves easily and what spoils quickly, institutions form to solve local frictions. Therefore, doctrine and practice attach to officials, elders, or traders in patterns unlike the belt's monsoon plus caravan mesh. Everyday stakes sit in the ledger and the lunch pot. Rice tax calendars fix planting, guild rules set porter wages, communal granaries open when roads wash out, a family delays a rite until cousins arrive by riverboat. Distinct maps, same needs. Roads, stores, speech. Where scripts differ, brokers translate. Where tongues meet, markets grow. Where storage lasts, study deepens. Some regions standardize through exams, others through initiation grades, still others through market charters. None of this says origin anywhere. It says coordination follows the tasks the land demands, and ideas scale when those tasks reward clarity and repetition. Lay a wind calendar over toll maps in any region, and watch the same test appear. Where corridors, surplus, and debate overlap, teachings travel. That is the lens we will carry into the close.
Caravans and ships mark a corridor from the Levant, Mesopotamia to the Indo-Gangetic plain, from 800 BCE into medieval networks. Merchants map seasons, scholars chase audiences. Roads and coinage disciplines spread, turning stops into stages. Tempting myths claim an origin zone, but the record resists verdicts. Treat the Holy Belt instead as a lens. Where roots, surpluses, and debate meet, ideas scale. Find the corridor, count the stores, listen for argument, the pattern repeats. Lay the layers on a table. Set down the wind calendar and the monsoon windows. Add river barns and storehouses. Add fee boards near tolls and sermon hours near markets. The same junctions brighten. Harbors with custom sheds, caravan oases with wells and notice boards, junction towns with milestones and mint marks. Because schedules and storage concentrate listeners and money, teachings settle into portable rules and recognizable signs. Everyday life fits the template. Dockhands time wages to sailing windows. Growers hold bread steady because ledgers match stores. Pupils plan journeys for festival weeks when teachers will surely be in port. The belt's value is not destiny, it is prediction. It tells you where to look for copyists' benches, bilingual boards, and patrons with time to listen. Outside this strip, different ecologies pose other problems, yet the rule still holds. Ideas scale when corridors, surpluses, and argument cross. So keep the map handy. If wind and road calendars overlap with barns and debate halls, expect doctrines to travel. If they do not, expect them to thin. That is the trick hiding in plain sight, a travel economy template that explains clusters without claiming beginnings. If this lens helped you see past origin talk and into working parts, add your read below. Like the video if the map clarified something, subscribe for the next route, and tap the bell so new arrivals reach you on time.
Until next time, keep questioning, stay curious, and remember, the map of faith
often follows the timetables of trade.